My name is Iris Tremaine, and the night I turned 18 years old, while my birthday balloons were still tied to the chairs and the cake was half-eaten on the kitchen counter, I sat down quietly, opened my laptop, and moved a multi-million-dollar inheritance into a locked legal trust that nobody in my family could touch. Not because I was being selfish, not because I wanted revenge, but because I had been listening very carefully for 2 years, and I knew exactly what was coming the next morning. By 9 a.m., my father was standing in a government office watching a county clerk tell him that the property he thought he owned had never belonged to him at all. My uncle, who had already signed a contract to sell land that wasn't his, was on the phone with 3 different lawyers before noon, and a $450,000 real estate deal that had been in motion for months collapsed completely in under 10 minutes. But here is the thing, I didn't outsmart them. My grandparents did. They built a legal wall around everything they owned 6 years before any of this happened. 6 years before my grandfather died. 6 years before my uncle started making phone calls. 6 years before my dad started talking about selling property at the dinner table like it was already decided. They saw it coming that far in advance, and they planned for it quietly, without telling anyone, except eventually, me. To understand why they did it, and why they chose me, you have to go back to the summer I turned 12, to a lake in the middle of nowhere, to a cabin that smelled like pine and old books, and to a grandfather who taught me something about wood that I didn't realize until years later was actually about people. That summer, my grandfather Harold Tremaine showed up at the house one morning without calling ahead. He knocked twice, told me to get my shoes, and drove me 40 minutes out of town without explaining where we were going. He was like that. Not a lot of words, just action. The cabin sat back from Cedar Lake, surrounded by white pine trees so tall they blocked out the afternoon sun. The porch leaned slightly to one side. The screen door didn't close all the way, and the whole place smelled like wood smoke and old books and something sweet I could never quite identify. We spent the morning fixing fence posts along the south side of the property. He didn't rush me. He showed me how to test old wood by pressing your thumb into the grain. If it gives, he said, it's done. Don't try to save it. Replace it. I was 12 years old. I thought we were just doing yard work. We were not just doing yard work. Inside, my grandmother Vivian had iced tea and sandwiches waiting on the kitchen table. The table my grandfather had built himself the year they got married. She was reading on the porch when I came in, and she patted the empty chair beside her without looking up from her book. We sat together and watched the lake until the light turned gold. That evening, my grandfather wiped sawdust off his hands and said something I would not understand for another 6 years. This cabin stays in the family. But family isn't always blood, Iris. Family is whoever shows up. I nodded like I understood. I didn't. I was 12. I thought he was being poetic. He was not being poetic. That whole summer I came back to Cedar Lake every single weekend. I learned where the water heater leaked and which window stuck and how to bleed the radiator before October. My grandmother taught me to organize the bookshelves by color because she said it made the room feel warmer. My grandfather showed me the property line markers, old iron stakes he had driven into the ground himself years ago. I did not know then that while I was learning every corner of that cabin, my grandfather was already sitting in a lawyer's office downtown having a very different kind of conversation. A conversation about exactly this property, and exactly me. Back home in Ridgemont, the air felt different. Our house was fine. 3 bedrooms, a yard that needed mowing, a garage my dad used as an office for his building supply business. Fine. Not warm, just fine. My sister Kelsey was 10 and she had the bigger bedroom, freshly repainted in lavender with a new desk lamp that cost more than my entire bookshelf. My room still had the carpet from the previous owners. At dinner one night, my dad Greg brought up the cabin. Dad's place is just sitting out there losing value, he said, cutting his steak. Property taxes alone are killing us. We should sell it, reinvest the money somewhere. My mom Denise nodded. Makes sense. Grandpa said the cabin stays in the family, I said. Greg laughed. Not a mean laugh. Something worse, a dismissive one. The kind of laugh that ends a conversation before it starts. You were 12, Iris. He was just being nice. Nobody asked me anything else after that. The conversation moved to my sister Kelsey's debate trophy, regional finalist, very impressive, and my mom had already framed the certificate. 2 weeks earlier, I had won the district science fair. The ribbon was still in my backpack. After dinner I cleared the plates. On the kitchen counter, half hidden under a grocery list, there was a glossy printed flyer. Ridgeline Development, lakefront lots, premium prices, now acquiring. There was a handwritten phone number in the margin. It was not my father's handwriting. I stared at it for a moment. Then I put it back exactly where I found it. Upstairs, I sat on my bed and thought about my grandfather's kitchen table. The one he built with his own hands. The one where my grandmother set my sandwich without asking what I wanted because she already knew. Then I thought about the flyer downstairs. Someone was already measuring my grandparents' home in dollar signs. And I was 12 years old with no idea what to do about it. My grandfather Harold died 2 years later. I was 14. The funeral was on a Tuesday. Gray sky, damp grass, folding chairs that kept sinking into the wet lawn. I sat in the second row holding his handkerchief, blue plaid, frayed at the edges, smelling faintly of pine. At the reception afterward, I noticed my dad and his brother Wade standing near the dessert table. Not eating. Just talking low and fast. Wade had a folder tucked under his arm. My dad kept nodding. I was standing close enough to hear one sentence clearly. We should move on this before probate gets complicated. They were talking about the cabin. At the funeral. I said nothing. I was 14 years old. I had no power, no legal standing, and no idea that my grandfather had already accounted for this exact conversation, years in advance. 2 years passed. I was 16 when my grandmother Vivian got sick in March. She was gone by June. The last time I visited her, she held my hand. Her grip was surprisingly firm for someone who looked so fragile. The cabin is yours, Iris, she whispered. Don't let them take it. Promise me. I promise, Grandma. She squeezed my hand once. Then she closed her eyes. After her funeral, another gray day, same folding chairs sinking into the same kind of lawn, I came home to find my dad Greg already sitting at the kitchen table talking to my mom. Now we can finally sort out the property, he said. He said it with relief. Like something heavy had finally been lifted off his shoulders. That same evening, Uncle Wade called. I could hear my dad pacing in the garage, his voice lighter than it had been in weeks. Yeah, no, I agree. Let's get it moving. I was standing in the hallway holding a glass of water. And something settled into my chest like a stone. My grandmother's death was not a loss to them. It was a clearance. I did not cry that night. I made a different kind of decision. I just did not know yet how to act on it. Between 16 and almost 18, the cabin became my quiet rebellion. Every single Saturday morning, I drove out to Cedar Lake in the used Honda I bought with babysitting money. I patched the porch screen. I replaced the weather stripping on the back door. I swept pine needles off the roof because my grandfather had told me that is exactly how leaks start, slowly, quietly, from the outside in. At home, the language shifted without anyone announcing it. The cabin stopped being called Grandpa's place. Now it was the family property. My dad said this at dinner one night like it had always been true. Uncle Wade started showing up every other Sunday. Sometimes with folders, sometimes with a laptop open to real estate listings. He and my dad would disappear into the garage together and come out 20 minutes later talking about nothing. I tried once to say something directly. What about what Grandma wanted? She wanted me to keep it. My mom put down her fork gently, the way she always did before correcting my homework. Your grandmother was emotional at the end, sweetheart. This is business. Business. That was the word they used for everything that used to be love. By the time I was 17, my dad stopped being subtle. When you turn 18, we'll figure this out as a family. The way he said the word family, I knew exactly what he meant. My way. Then one afternoon, alone at the cabin, I was clearing out the hall closet. Behind a stack of old quilts, I found something tucked against the back wall. A sealed envelope. My name on the front in my grandmother's handwriting. Inside was a single business card. Margaret Caldwell, attorney at law. Below her name, in small printed letters, Tremaine Family Trust. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from recognition. My grandmother had left this here for me to find. She knew I would be the one cleaning out closets. Not my dad, not Uncle Wade, me. I slipped the card into my wallet. I did not call, not yet. 3 months before my 18th birthday, Margaret Caldwell called me first. The call came on a Thursday evening in February. I was sitting in my room doing calculus homework when my phone showed an unknown number with a local area code. Iris, this is Margaret Caldwell. I was your grandparents' attorney. Her voice was steady and careful, like someone who had rehearsed the opening. I need to speak with you before your birthday. There are things you need to know, and there isn't much time. Can you meet me Saturday at my office? Alone. I went. Margaret Caldwell was in her late 50s, silver-haired, with reading glasses on a chain around her neck. Her office was small and organized and smelled like old paper and coffee. She sat across from me and opened a folder without any small talk. Your grandparents hired me 6 years ago, she said. They established an irrevocable trust, the cabin, a savings account and an investment portfolio. Total value, approximately $1 million. All of it held in the trust. You are the sole beneficiary. I felt the room shift slightly. They transferred everything into the trust while they were still alive. Legally, it never entered their estate. It cannot go through probate. Your father and your uncle have no claim to any of it. She slid a document across the desk, a summary of the trust, my name printed on the second line. The title to the cabin was recorded under the trust at the county recorder's office 6 years ago. Your father does not know that. I asked why they had not told him. Margaret paused. Your grandfather's exact words were, and I am quoting directly, my sons will sell that cabin before the funeral flowers wilt. The room was completely quiet. I stared at the paper with my name on it. There is something else, Margaret said. Someone has been making inquiries at the county recorder's office about the cabin title within the last month. I started paying very close attention after that meeting. That Sunday, Uncle Wade came over for dinner. Afterward he and my dad disappeared into the garage. The door was open just a crack, not enough to see inside, but enough to hear clearly. Wade's voice first. I already signed the purchase agreement with Ridgeline for $450, but we need the title clean before closing. My dad, how do we get it clean? Quitclaim deed. Dad's gone, mom's gone. We're the legal heirs. We quitclaim the property to ourselves, record it, and sell. Simple. Is that legal? It's a standard real estate transfer between heirs. Nobody is going to question it. A pause. Then my dad, quieter. What about Iris? My chest tightened. Wade's answer came fast, like he had already thought it through 100 times. She's 17, Greg. She cannot do anything. And by the time she turns 18, the sale will already be done. She'll be upset. She'll get over it. We'll give her a cut, $50,000 for college. She should be grateful. I stepped back from the garage door. My hands were cold. Wade had already signed a purchase agreement, $450,000, with a real estate development company for a cabin he did not own, on land that had been held in a legal trust for 6 years. He assumed nobody had planned otherwise. That night, I texted Margaret 2 words. They're accelerating. Her reply came in 3 minutes. I expected that. Come see me Saturday. We'll prepare everything. Margaret laid everything out on a legal pad the following Saturday, drawing lines between dates like a battle plan. The cabin title was already under the trust. If Uncle Wade filed a quitclaim deed, the county recorder should reject it immediately because the chain of title would not match. The property had not been in my grandparents' personal names for 6 years, but there was a risk. If he submits additional paperwork, an affidavit claiming heirship, or falsified documents, he could create what is called a cloud on title. That will not give him ownership, but it could tie the property up in legal disputes for a year or more, so I had to act first. The moment you turn 18, you are a legal adult. You can formally accept the role of successor beneficiary. Once you sign that one document, I file a lease pendens, a public notice of legal interest, at the county recorder's office first thing the next morning. That freezes the title completely. Nobody can record anything against it while it is active. One document, one signature. She would handle everything else. I asked whether I should tell my parents. Margaret took off her glasses. Your grandfather specifically asked me to protect you, Iris, not to negotiate with them. I drove home. Greg was in the kitchen, smiling. Good news, kiddo. I'm throwing you a birthday party. The whole family. Saturday night. He smiled. My mom smiled. Even my sister Kelsey clapped. I smiled too. My dad was planning my birthday party. My uncle was planning to sell my grandmother's cabin. And I was standing at the kitchen table smiling. Because in 9 days, I was going to let all of them believe that everything was going exactly according to their schedule. 5 days before my birthday, my mom sat down next to me on the couch. She was using her talking to adults voice, soft, practiced, slightly rehearsed. Now that you're almost 18, she said, there are some family decisions we should make together. Together. The word landed like a costume that did not quite fit. The cabin costs money to maintain. Taxes, insurance, repairs. Your dad's business has been struggling. If we sell, we could pay off the debt and set up college funds for both you and Kelsey. Grandma wanted me to keep it, I said. A flash of impatience crossed my mother's face, quickly smoothed over. Your grandmother was very sentimental at the end, Iris. But sentiment does not pay property taxes. My dad walked in right on cue. I wondered later if they had planned the timing. I've already spoken to a buyer, he said. Good price. Fair deal. I asked who the buyer was. He paused for just a moment too long. A development company. Wade knows them. Ridgeline something. I said I would think about it. Greg patted my shoulder. That's my girl. He walked away satisfied, like he had just closed a negotiation. That night, my sister Kelsey knocked on my door. She was in pajamas, hair damp from the shower, picking at a loose thread on my comforter. Mom and Dad keep talking about the cabin after I go to bed, she said quietly. They sound different. Excited, but also nervous. She looked at me sideways. Is something happening? I pulled the blanket over her feet. Don't worry about it, Kels. She nodded, but she did not look convinced. 3 days before my birthday, Uncle Wade showed up at the house unannounced. He caught me in the driveway coming back from the grocery store. Casual clothes, big smile, leaning against his car like he just happened to be in the neighborhood. Wade was a real estate agent. Nothing he did was accidental. We sat on the front steps. He leaned forward with his elbows on his knees. Here is the thing, Iris. That lake lot, just the land alone, is worth $450,000. I can get us a deal with a buyer I trust. Fast close, clean paperwork. And what do I get? $50,000 cash for college. I let the number sit in the air between us. 50 out of 450? Wade smiled like I had said something cute. You're 18, Iris. 50 grand is a lot of money for someone your age. Most kids would jump at that. I looked at him steadily. Whose name is on the deed, Uncle Wade? The smile froze. Just for a second, a small flicker behind his eyes, and then it was back. Your grandparents. But they are gone now. It passes to your dad and me as next of kin. That is not how it works. I knew it. He should have known it. He sold houses for a living. But he was betting everything on the assumption that I did not know. I'll think about it, I said. Wade stood up and brushed off his jeans. Don't overthink this one, Iris. Opportunities like this don't wait. He drove away. Before he had even reached the end of the street, he was already on his phone. I could see his mouth moving through the driver's side window. That night, I texted Margaret again, still accelerating. She replied in 2 minutes. Stay the course. 3 more days. 3 more days. I could do 3 more days. The night before my birthday, I drove out to the cabin alone. The road was quiet. Cedar Lake sat flat and dark under a half moon. The pine trees along the bank looked like black shapes cut out against the sky. I parked in the gravel patch my grandfather had leveled himself, walked up the porch steps. The second one still creaked exactly the same way it always had, and sat in the chair next to the one that used to be his. The air smelled like rain and pine resin. I opened my email. Margaret had sent the complete document package. The acceptance form, the beneficiary confirmation, a 1-page summary of the trust terms. Everything formatted, everything flagged, ready for one signature. My signature. At midnight, I read each document twice. Then I closed the laptop and listened to the lake. My grandfather used to sit in this exact chair and say, "Patience isn't weakness, Iris. It's timing." I always thought he was talking about fishing. The tears came without any warning. Not a breakdown, just a quiet overflow that I let happen. I cried because I wished things were different. I wished my dad had been the kind of man who would have taken me fishing at this lake instead of calculating what the land was worth per square foot. I wished my mom had asked me what I wanted instead of always telling me what was practical. I wished I did not have to sign a legal document at midnight to protect myself from the people who were supposed to protect me. But wishes do not hold up in court. Trust documents do. I wiped my face, locked the cabin, drove home, and set my alarm for 11:45 p.m. In 6 hours I would turn 18. In 7, my family would find out that the cabin had never been theirs to take. At exactly midnight, I opened my laptop and connected to the video call. Margaret appeared on screen in her home office, reading glasses on, desk lamp lit, papers organized in front of her. "Ready?" she asked. "Ready." She walked me through the document one final time, clear and precise. I signed the acceptance of successor beneficiary form, 1 page confirming that I was formally receiving the trust my grandparents had built. From that second forward, every decision about the trust went through me and Margaret together. "First thing tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., she said, I will go to the county recorder's office and file the lease pendants. Once it is recorded, no one can sell, transfer, or place any claim against that title while it remains active." I looked at the signed paper in my hand. My name in ink. My grandparents' names printed above mine. Margaret's voice softened just slightly. "This is not a trick, Iris. This is your grandfather's last gift to you. You just had to be old enough to accept it." The clock on my laptop read 12:03 a.m. I was 18. I was the legal beneficiary of the Tremaine Family Irrevocable Trust. And downstairs in the garage, my uncle's quitclaim deed was already a worthless piece of paper. He would find that out in about 9 hours. The birthday party started at 4 in the afternoon. About 20 people. Neighbors, a few of my parents' friends, 2 of my dad's business contacts. Nora Beckett from next door to the cabin was there too, sitting near the window with a glass of lemonade and very sharp, very watchful eyes. Balloons. A banner. A sheet cake from the bakery on Main Street. I smiled. I thanked everyone. I opened small gifts. In my jacket pocket, folded into a neat square, was the signed acceptance form from the night before. I did not touch it. I did not need to. It was already done. My dad stood up near the cake table and tapped his glass. "Iris is officially an adult today. Denise and I are so proud of her." He paused, looking around the room with satisfaction. "And as a family, we have some exciting plans for the future." He looked directly at me. "Right, Iris?" Every face in the room turned toward me. "Thanks, Dad," I said. Nothing more. Greg waited a beat, then laughed it off and raised his glass. The room followed. From the corner of my eye, I could see Uncle Wade by the front door, typing fast on his phone with both thumbs. Later, Nora Beckett pulled me aside near the window. Your grandmother would want you to know something, she said quietly. I saw your uncle at the cabin last week. He had 2 men in suits with him. They were walking the property line with a measuring tape. Wade had already brought the buyers to the property before he even had the title. That was how confident he was. Then my dad stood up again. This time his voice was louder, more deliberate, the voice of a man who had been waiting for an audience. Before we wrap up, I want to share something with everyone. He put his hand on my mother's shoulder. Our family has been going through a difficult time financially. Some of you know about the store. It has been hard. Sympathetic looks from around the room. But Harold and Vivian, my parents, they left us something. The cabin out at Cedar Lake. And as a family, we have decided to sell it to secure everyone's future. He looked directly at me. Iris understands. She knows this is what is best for all of us. Right, sweetheart? The room waited. Every single eye in that room found me. Neighbors who had known me since I was small. Nora with her lemonade. My sister Kelsey half hidden behind the couch. My mother added, still smiling. It is what responsible families do. We make sacrifices for each other.